Morning and welcome to the Daily Tanya. Today is Friday, the 13th day of Sivan, and we continue chapter 4 in Shar, Haychud, והאמונה, the portal of unity and faith in God. So let's begin with tzedakah again. Gedola tzedakah shemekareves es hageula. So we discussed yesterday the power of Hashem of creation that is really hard. It's impossible to understand. And we discussed the question that the Alter Rebbe asked at the end of last chapter, chapter 3, and that was, how is it possible for us to experience ourselves as self-existing and knowing the fact that nothing exists of its own, everything is made by Hashem, and God constantly has to create it. He has to be here in us. And just like the example that we used, the light of the sun. He said the light of the sun fills itself. You can see the light as a separate entity outside of the sun. But while the light is in the sun, does not have its separate entity. It is completely consumed within its source. And being that Hashem is everywhere, being that God is everywhere, so we are basically in the source. So how do we feel ourselves as separate entities? And we started discussing yesterday, and today the Alter Rebbe continues explaining the concept of the dual powers of God, the greatness of God and the might of God, God's greatness and God's might. The greatness represents God's attributes of giving, which is the attributes of creating, which is endless. And that is obviously something that nobody can copy. You take all the scientists in the world, as our sages say, tell them to create a little tiny mosquito, they will not be able to do it. To create something from nothing is something that we cannot do, no one can do. There's the famous joke with the scientist that said to Hashem, we already so much advanced, we can create something new. We can create something just like you did. And they said, okay, so God says to them, okay, let me see, show me your tricks. And they take some earth, and they wanted to create from the earth a living creature. And God said, hold on, wait a second. Go get your own earth, don't take my earth. So creating something from nothing is obviously something that nobody can do. Not only nobody can do, we cannot understand it. It's beyond understanding. Understanding is always looking for the cause in the effect. Children will always try to look where is it coming from? People are curious. Scientists always looking at what comes first, what came before, what was the cause. The idea, the concept of something does not have a cause, but something comes from nothing is something which is beyond understanding. And Alter Rebbe goes on to say that just as the power, and that is the power of the greatness of Hashem. Greatness means that the endless giving something from nothing. Just like this is something which is beyond our understanding. Also the might of God, the power of restraint that God has to restrain that endless, limitless flow, to restrain it to the point that a created being can become created and yet feel itself as an independent and not feel its source. That Two is something that comes from the only one that is from Hashem. The only one that is capable of doing so is God, and the only one that is capable of understanding is only God. We cannot understand this concept, just like we cannot understand the concept of creating something from nothing. It is also beyond our understanding the concept of restraint, restraining that endless power to the point that a being can be created and feel as self-existing. So let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe explains. The Alter Rebbe v'hinei k'moi shemida zu ishvochoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu levadi. Now this attribute of Hagadol, we said L'cho Hashem HaGedula v'Hagvura, for you God is the greatness and the might. We say in the Amidah, we say Agakel Hagadol HaGibor, the great God, the mighty God. Hagadol is the attribute of Chesed, the attribute of kindness that spreads forth his life force into all the worlds, so as to create them ex nihilo, something from nothing. So this praise, the attribute of Gedula, is exclusively the praise of the Holy One, blessed be He. That's exclusively Hashem's praise. She'ein bi'yecholos shum nivro livro yesh me'ayin ola chayosei. Because no other creature, created thing, can create a being out of nothing and give it life. Not only is this something that is beyond the capability of everyone to do, it is beyond comprehension. This attribute of benevolence, whereby Hashem creates ex nihilo, is also beyond the cognition of all creatures and their understanding. She'ein koyach b'seichel shum nivra lehaskil ulehasig midazu v'yicholta livro yesh me'ayin ulachayesa. For it is not within the power of the intellect of any creature to comprehend through the faculty of chachma, or understand through the faculty of bina, wisdom, understanding. This attribute and its ability to create a being out of nothing and vivify it, that is beyond our understanding. Because the creation, something from nothing, ex nihilo, is a matter which transcends the intellect of all creatures. Because inasmuch as it stems from the divine attribute of Gedula, now the Holy One, blessed be He, and His attributes are a perfect unity, which means the attributes of God are not separated from Hashem. It is godliness one with His attributes. As the Holy Zohar states, He and His causations, meaning His attributes, are one. And just as it is impossible for the mind of any creature to comprehend its creator, so it is impossible for it to comprehend His attributes, for they are one with Him. So this is regarding the attribute of giving, attribute of chesed, endless giving. The same thing, says the Alter Rebbe, also the attribute of restraint. And just as it is impossible for the mind of any creature to apprehend his attribute of gedula, the greatness, which is the ability to create a being out of nothing and give it life. As it is written, the world is built by the created through, meaning it's created through the attributes of kindness. So just like this is impossible to understand, כך ממש אין ביכולתו להשיג מידס גבורוסו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, שמידס הצמצום ומניעס ההספשטוס החייס מגדולוסי. Exactly so, it is impossible for it to apprehend the divine attribute of Gevura, the might, the restraint of Hashem, which is the faculty of Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means contraction, condensation, concealment, restraining the spreading forth of the life force from his attribute of Gedula. To restrain it, preventing it from descending upon the manifesting itself to the creatures and providing them with life and existence in a revealed manner, but rather with his countenance concealed, meaning the divine activating force is at work within creation in a concealed manner, and that is something which is beyond our understanding. Because the life force conceals itself in the body of the created being, making it appear as if the body of the created being had independent existence. And making it appear as though the created being was not merely an extension of the life force and the spirituality that creates it, just like the diffusion of the radiance and light of the sun, but an independently existing entity. That's the perception that we have. And that is one of the greatest miracles. It's impossible to understand how this happens. Although in reality the created being has no independent existence. It is only like the diffusion of the light from the sun. Nevertheless, this nullification is not felt by the created being, even though they are but a diffusion of God's activating force, because this capacity of self-concealment is precisely the restraining power of the Holy One, blessed be He, who is Kol Yachal, is omnipotent. He's capable of everything. There's nothing that is not capable of. And hence is able to conceal the life force and spirituality which issues from the breath of his mouth, and to conceal it, so that the body of the created being shall not become nullified out of existence. And hence, notwithstanding the fact that the created being is but a diffusion of the rays of its source, it is thus unable to perceive itself to be an independently existing entity. And this is something which is beyond our understanding. It is beyond the scope of the mind of any creature to comprehend the essential nature of the tzimtzum and concealment, and to comprehend that nevertheless, the tzimtzum notwithstanding, the creature itself be created something from nothing. Just as it is impossible, just as it is not within the capacity of the mind of any creature to comprehend the essential nature of the creation of being out of nothing. Same thing, we cannot understand, comprehend the concept of the constraint, the restraint that Hashem restrains His endless power and gives us the feeling, the ability to feel ourselves as self-existent. So this is just the beginning of explaining this concept. Alter Rebbe will continue this in the next couple of chapters. In the meantime, I want to wish you a good Shabbos, and we shall see you on Sunday, Be'ezras Hashem. All the best.